unite the world against terrorism are set to begin. The 7 delegations with 59 leaders who are members of parliament, former ministers and former diplomats will be travelling to 32 countries and the EU headquarters in Brussels to explain India's stand on terror. India has been piloting a UN resolution to define terrorism for years. This is the time to get it done. We here at NewsX are presenting the Anti-Terror Alliance Charter. Point number 1, the Charter says that there must be a renewed united definition of terrorism incorporating the modern day forms and challenges posed today. Point number 2, the UN must pass a resolution defining terrorism with the former understanding. Point number 3, there must be a redefinition of state sponsorship of terrorism and the repercussions to countries doing this. Point number 4, organizations like FATF must enhance its responses against terror funding states. We will now examine these pointers one by one and bring in our guests and also get their opinion on this matter. Joining us on the show is Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, Mr. Sumit Peer, Senior Political Commentator with us, and General Sudhakarji continues to grace us with his presence as well. Professor Nalapat, I'll begin with you. So over the years, over the decades, the definition, like they say in Hindi, the paribhasha of terrorism has changed drastically. India in its new doctrine announced to the world that we cannot look at terrorism in silos. It is connected to states, it is connected to sponsors, like the Houthis and the Hezbollah is connected to Iran, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed are connected to Pakistan. They are connected with an umbilical cord. We need to consider this as one union, one unity. Do you think the track record that the United Nations has had when it comes to paying heed to these demands and these urgencies by India and the rest of the world, there will be a change, sir?
Well, Vineet, I'd like to say that it's a very, very laudable suggestion to have a charter for terrorism, and that's very, very important, because the reality is terror is a problem, a huge global problem. We don't know when terrorists are going to strike, how they're going to strike, and how many innocent lives are going to go as a result. There's no doubt about that, but I have my doubts about this getting passed. For the most important reason is the UN Security Council is today deadlocked. Russia and China on one side, the other 3 members on the other, among the permanent 5, and all 5 members have a veto. So essentially, I don't think that possibly Russia may abstain, but certainly not China. I don't think they're going to allow it to pass. But having said that, I think it's important to conscientize the world about terror, about terrorism, about, frankly, state-sponsored terrorism as a form of proxy war. I think that these members of parliament who are going and others who are going there, a very distinguished delegation, and led by some very able people, I think they need to conscientize the world, and public opinion has to come on our side, on the side of the charter. If public opinion comes, I don't think the politicians can hold out for long, except of course in China and states like that. But in my view, it's going to be a struggle, but it's the struggle that's definitely important, and who knows, it might one day be achieved. We never thought, for example, in way back in 1857, that we would have, 1947 independence. It took a long time before that, but it happened. So my point is, we should definitely continue this effort, and we should conscientize the world. And in this context, I must say that the choice of delegates has been exceptionally good, and I think these delegates will need to be, frankly, having some a concrete point besides the problem of terror in India and state sponsorship, proxy sponsorship. And I think this charter would be a good thing to bring up, if not formally, at least in informal conversations, which are often as important or more important than formal conversations we need.
Let me also bring in Sumit Peer into this conversation. Sumit, important to understand that India, along with a number of other countries, has been a sufferer of terrorism. Israel is another example. It is surrounded by adversaries, but it's learned to protect itself. It's learned to pull its own weight when it comes to defending itself and not listen to the rest of the world as well. Do you think this was the first glimpse of that same pathology? It was a glimpse of that same character, Sumit, that same disposition that Israel also has, that we will not ask the Americans or the Chinese or the Russians before we defend anybody. We will not care for their opinion, and we will make sure that terrorists are associated with the country that nurtures them, that creates them, and that sends them across the border to kill unarmed Indian civilians and ask their religion.
Vinny, thank you for having me on your show. It's a very important show today, and thanks for the question. Look, it's very simple what we are facing right now. We are facing this terrorism for the last 35 years, maybe more than that. And if I go look at from a civilization perspective, few hundred years. There have been invaders coming and have been persecuting Hindus here, and I think maximum number of people who are killed by invaders across the world, if you look at the last 1,000 years, are Hindus. So we've taken the maximum brunt of this religious-based persecution in the name of expanding their kingdoms or terrorism. With time, it has manifested and changed forms. Today, we call it terrorism, but the ethos or the mentality remains the same. So answering your question very specifically, look, India has evolved. India has come forward. Today, India is the only country who has put a rogue, nuclear-powered neighbor, Pakistan, supported 101% with men, intel and machinery by another nuclear power, China, into a box. This has not done by anybody else. This Israel could not do it. United States of America has not done an operation like this. So when you were fighting, when we are in Operation Sindoor and we were taking on Pakistan, the equipment was Chinese, the drones were Chinese, the equipment, the men and machinery behind the equipment was Chinese. There are a lot of rumors a few Chinese engineers and technicians have died. There's a credible intel out of 100,000 people of China who were in Pakistan. Few selected were asked to leave Pakistan via KPK, via Afghanistan and Iran. Why only those few? What was China trying to hide? There are already visible claims that the joint military infrastructure of China and Pakistan, stationed in Pakistan, was hit on the periphery. There is credible evidence now Balochistan and POK China has listening stations and relay centers which have been compromised. And if you look at this HQ9, it was operated and manned by some possible Chinese technicians. Even there is a credible sources which claim that the J-10 complete operation was still managed by the Chinese technicians. So when you were fighting Pakistan, you were fighting China and Pakistan together, and both of them are nuclear powered. Still, you could do what you could do. This has not been achieved by Israel. This has not been achieved by United States of America. So the India's message is loud and clear. But only one thing where we need to kind of improve a bit is that when you look at our foreign policy, which is brilliant and good, but I cannot change my adversary. If my adversary, which is Pakistan predominantly, looks this fight as a civilizational fight, I can choose to be ostrich, I can look at pure geopolitical, but wo to nahi sudrega na. He's looking from that lens. So what we need to do is we need to put another lens to our diplomacy and pass everything through these two lenses, and then you'll be in a better position to find who are friends and who are not. And I always believe if Israel has a right to defend itself, India has a right to defend itself. You can't say to the 18% of the population of the world, you will take my permission to defend. And what the hell? You take approval from Chinese who are hand in glove with Pakistan. We have seen Chinese leave Kohota. We have seen Chinese technician in Pakistan's nuclear facilities. These days, there's a lot of things which have come in. And after 115 Chinese spy satellites looking at us, Chinese AWACS tracking us, Chinese military intel tracking us, still we could beat Pakistanis black and blue. Now China is really rattled. They don't know what to do because the jinx of Chinese invisibility is kind of compromised. As far as Pakistan is concerned, wo to nanga bhikhari hai. It doesn't matter much to them. The problem is with Chinese, whose military might is now questionable. Their arsenal is now questionable. And thus, such a circumstance, Modi ji has shown the political will which no other Prime Minister of India so far has even come near to, because you are handling a joint venture between Pakistan and China, and both are nuclear powered. And what Modi ji has demonstrated is that Operation Sindoor is perpetually on, and now who's running for cover is Pakistan, and who's running behind the bylanes is China. That is why some of their citizens were ordered to leave through KPK and Afghanistan. They were much unsafer. They are much safer in a Lahore than a KPK or Afghanistan. Then I'll go more out through Iran. Why was that done? Because we know what they were trying to hide. They were trying to hide this nexus. They were trying to hide this joint military ops which was happening. And the day this information will hit the world, they were rattled. So this is what India has achieved. This is a phenomenal success, and India should continue the tempo. India should not let down the guard. India should send a very clear message to the world. We don't need your approval. We don't need your dictation. We don't need your good boy certificates, or we don't even mind your bad boy certificates. If Israel can do it with such a small population, huh? Bharat bahut bada. India is very big and the army is much more powerful. We can do it today. Who is running?
But do you think, Sumit, that the bias that the Western world holds towards India is also unfair at this point in time? India has produced massive amount of dossiers, massive amount of corroboration when it comes to naming and shaming the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. But that has not been accepted in the United Nations. It has not been accepted. We shot down a lot of Pakistani drones. We bombed the terrorist infrastructure. We hit the Noor Khan air base. The Western media is completely quiet about this. So do you think that our strategy needs to be more proactive and more robust? I'm going to get a quick response from Sumit, and then I want General Sudhakarji also to respond to this question.
The first thing is that we are this time proactive. We need to be much more ahead in the game. And at the end of the day, what counts is the dead bodies and the devastation of the enemy's end. Whatever XYZ publication has to say doesn't matter. As long as the enemy is live and kicking, he'll come again for you. If you dismantle him, the dismantling of Pakistan's complete nuclear bluff and infrastructure is what has rattled the West. They could not imagine how India could do it. They had never that in the thought of their thoughts. India could go so far, and Modi can declare Operation Sindoor is on till perpetuity. This new avatar of India, they cannot fathom. So what are they trying to do? They are trying to discredit you, and especially Rahul Gandhi and others are joining the bandwagon. That was on the expected lines. If you are Rahul Gandhi and some leaders of Pawan, what is his name, Pawan Khera, whatever, they are joining the bandwagon. That is already a proof to the testimony that now they are rattled. They don't know how to do. The best thing they can do is try to break the model from inside, questioning how many Rafales were down. Kitne jahaz gire? Why didn't you tell us? All these things they talk about the mere frustration and the fright of Operation Sindoor and the fantastic achievements it has done and changed the landscape permanently. We need.
All right, General Sudhakarji, India needs to be proactive. India needs to understand that before something like this happens again, and India has to take its case to the United Nations or the rest of the world, there needs to be a continuous groundwork. There needs to be a separate mobilization and galvanization of our efforts towards naming and shaming Pakistan if another terror attack happens. General Sudhakarji.
Absolutely, Vinit, you have put your finger on the nail, and to respond to your question or the preamble, I would say that we should be alive to the reality of the global order today. The reality is that we are existing on an architecture of transatlantic relationship today. The transatlantic relationship is in a declining phase, be it economy, military might, or whatever. Merely having 790, 800 military bases by the superpower doesn't make it to the superpower. So while on one hand there is a declining signature, there is a non-acceptance of the attributes which are driving the new dynamics of 21st century. What are the new dynamics? It is to an extent geoeconomics, because it is by virtue of geopolitics the transatlantic relationship managed to disintegrate Soviet Union, thinking or assuming that the global order will be driven by unipolarity. They have already experienced setbacks at a number of places, and they have realized there is a greater awareness within where I am today that priority one should be MAGA, Make America Great Again, by focusing on economics. Because if they don't do it, the country is destined to be broke in near future. So the culture, as you know, you've been there, Vinita, all the places, so as the very distinguished panelists, their lifestyle is based on taking loan and surviving. Okay, so printing of dollars, how long is it going to continue? 36 trillion US dollar economy debt is a huge amount. So therefore, what I am coming to is that they in any case will not agree to the new structures and the new parameters which are being thrown up by the global south or towards the eastern hemisphere of the global order today. So whenever I would say that the biggest central point today lacking in the world is the trust. The trust, if you have to actually put a barometer or quantify trust, there is only one country which is standing out, because while coming to this place, I have touched base in Middle East as also Europe and couple of other countries. I've got a sense of what is the world feeling. It is India. It is not that I'm an Indian, I'm talking. It is India which is actually has won the hearts and minds of the people in the world. Everyone without exception, maybe one odd exception would be there in G7 or all these countries. In the heart of their hearts, they know it is India which can lead the world, and trustfully, it occupies a huge pie in the pie diagram of trust deficit in the world today, wherein everyone will like to put his hand or finger on India if it has to lead the world towards some meaningful,
All right, sir.
substantive.
All right, sir. Let me quickly take concluding thoughts.
Terrorism.
Absolutely,
Last but
sir.
not the least,
I'll come for your concluding thoughts, sir. I'll come for your concluding thoughts, sir. Professor Nalapat, concluding thoughts, sir, and then we wrap up.
Look, I'd like to say very clearly, Vineet, that reality is now the Indo-Pacific. The reality of the new Cold War is there. The reality that if China overtakes the United States as the number one power in the world, the United States is going to be in deep trouble. Not only will it dollar collapse or American, what do I say, the ability of America to influence the world and to whether soft power, and when all that collapses, hard power also collapses. So I'd like to say, in this era of the Indo-Pacific, unfortunately what has happened is the Atlanticist powers are still focusing on their ocean. They're focusing on Europe. They're not turning to Asia. And then when they turn to Asia, they say, oh, we look after you as well. We don't need them, thank you very much. We have our own Indo-Pacific countries, and the Indo-Pacific countries will form their own alliance. The Quad is the beginning of that kind of a system, and I think more will follow, and the Quad will be strengthened, I'm sure, by the necessary protocol. So I would like to say, Vineet, that you can't ignore the reality. You can live in the illusion, but the illusion is not going to protect you. There was an illusion in France and Germany and Britain that in 2 or 3 months they could eliminate Russia as a serious threat, and frankly, make sure the Ukrainians occupy the whole of the land, a part of it which was removed from their control in 2014. Instead of which, the Russians have gained almost twice the extent of territory that they had when the war started. So I'd like to say, Vineet, this is cold reality, and the cold reality, the US has got to wake up to it. No amount of talk, no amount of diplomacy is going to change the basic reality. And the basic reality is the threat now comes not from Russia, but from China. And the theater, the main theater is the Indo-Pacific, and the main continent is Asia, Vineet.
Absolutely right. Sumit, 30 seconds, please.
Vineet, it begins with giving India a permanent seat in the United UNSC, else we are wasting our time and they are wasting our time. We should tell them and be very straightforward with them. Look, we can go on this, explaining the whole world once or twice. And in this meeting, I hope we are telling to the world, agli baar hum nahi aayenge. We are going to have our MEA is going to release a press release, take it as the gospel truth, and this is how India is going to be. This is how India is going to believe. We are not here to take sermons from any of you. We don't do your approvals. We don't do your permissions, and we don't care a damn what do you think, assume, presume, and believe. We are a force to reckon with. Live with that reality. Accept us the way we are. Achhe, bure, jo bhi hai. Else, call it a day. Jai Siya Ram. That's what you should tell them.
Sudhakarji.
With it. Yeah, there is a thing called as Global Terrorist Index. It's a coining of the term, and paraphrasing is been done by transatlantic relationship. As per that, if you see 2025, Burkina Faso is the country which is worst impacted, followed by, I think, Israel, thereafter Mali, thereafter Pakistan. Now, how come India doesn't figure anywhere in that particular matrix? I'm really shocked and surprised. So therefore, some foreign channel was trying to take a definition from me. What do you mean by terrorism? See, for me, terrorism could be linked to geography, ideology, coercing the government and trying to impose. It could be a state-sponsored tool of foreign diplomacy or the foreign policy. So that has got no bearing. Time has come, like I tend to agree with our distinguished speakers and panelists. Sumit has outlined very beautifully, good, bad, ugly. Time has come. India has to lead the show and take the world order forward. Let me also tell you, Vinit, one more minute if you allow me.
Quickly,
Yeah,
sir.
the world order is not going to allow India to become a permanent member. Let me just tell you, forecast for next 100 years. You will not get a permanent seat. India has to create its permanent seat by the way Operation Sindoor we have done and lead the race and tell the world this is what the right thing is.
All right, sir. All right, sir. Well done, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation.